The millionaire CEO rejected 8 models but is fascinated by a single mother delivery girl. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment and tell me which city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 at the end. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. No. The single word cut through the luxurious penthouse office like a knife. Albert Morrison didn't even look up from his laptop as the 8th supermodel this month gathered her designer purse and left with wounded pride. At 34, the billionaire tech mogul had built an empire worth billions, but finding genuine love? That seemed impossible when every woman who walked through his door was more interested in his bank account than his heart. "Sir, that was the last candidate," his assistant Sandra announced nervously. "Your father specifically requested that you choose someone before the charity gala next week." Albert finally looked up, his steel gray eyes tired. "Then my father will be disappointed. Cancel the rest of my appointments for today." What Albert didn't know was that 3 blocks away, destiny was preparing the most beautiful chaos of his life. Davina Parker was having the worst delivery day imaginable, chasing her energetic 5-year-old daughter Belle through the crowded streets of Manhattan, both of them about to crash into his perfectly ordered world in the most unexpected way possible. "Sir, the car is ready for the charity gala," his assistant announced from the doorway. Albert didn't turn around. At 34, he had built Morrison Tech from a garage startup into a global empire worth billions. But success felt hollow when every woman who entered his life seemed more interested in his bank account than his heart. The parade of models his publicist had arranged, each more stunning and accomplished than the last, had left him feeling like he was shopping for a trophy rather than searching for a partner. "Cancel it," he said flatly. "I'm not in the mood to smile for cameras tonight." Little did he know, 3 blocks away, Davina Parker was having the worst delivery day of her career. "Belle, sweetie, please don't run ahead," Davina called out, juggling 2 large takeout bags while trying to keep up with her energetic 5-year-old daughter. Her delivery uniform was wrinkled from the long day, her ponytail had given up any pretense of neatness hours ago, and she was already running 10 minutes late for what was supposed to be her final delivery of the day. Belle Parker, with her wild curls bouncing and her purple sneakers flashing, was in full exploration mode. The lobby of Morrison Tower was like a wonderland to her. Marble floors perfect for sliding, mirrors that showed multiple versions of herself, and best of all, a revolving door that looked like the most amazing toy ever invented. "Mommy, look!" Belle squealed, running straight for the revolving door. "It's like a merry-go-round." "Belle, no!" Davina sprinted after her daughter, the takeout bags swinging dangerously. What happened next would later be described by witnesses as either a comedy of errors or divine intervention, depending on their perspective. Belle pushed into the revolving door just as Albert Morrison, having changed his mind about the gala, decided to leave through the same entrance. The little girl's excitement combined with Albert's distracted state created a perfect storm. Belle pushed too hard, Albert stepped in at the wrong moment, and suddenly they were both trapped in the same compartment of the revolving door, spinning faster than intended. "Whoa!" Belle giggled, delighted by the unexpected adventure. Albert, dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, found himself face to face with a pint-sized tornado in purple sneakers. "Well, this is new," he muttered, steadying himself against the glass. Meanwhile, Davina watched in horror as her daughter disappeared into the spinning door with a complete stranger. She pushed into the next compartment, but the door was now moving erratically, stopping and starting as the security guard rushed to help. When they finally extracted themselves from the mechanical mayhem, Belle bounced out laughing, while Albert emerged looking disheveled for the first time in years. His usually perfect hair was mussed, his tie was askew, and there was a small handprint on his expensive jacket. "I'm so sorry." Davina rushed forward, her face burning with embarrassment. "Belle, apologize to the nice man right now." Belle looked up at Albert with bright, curious eyes. "You're really tall. Are you a giant?" Albert crouched down to her level, surprising himself. "Not a giant, just tall. Are you a professional door spinner?" Belle giggled. "That's not a real job, silly." "Belle Parker," Davina scolded, mortified. I'm incredibly sorry, Mr. Morrison, Albert said, standing and extending his hand. Albert Morrison, and you are late, Davina said, then caught herself. I mean, Davina Parker. And this is my daughter Belle, who apparently thinks revolving doors are playground equipment. Albert noticed the takeout bag she was clutching and the delivery company logo on her shirt. You're here for a delivery? Penthouse level, but we're already so late. And now this. Davina gestured helplessly at the scene behind them. I live in the penthouse, Albert said. Did you place an order under Morrison? Davina checked her receipt, her eyes widening. Yes, that's you? The Albert Morrison? Guilty as charged. Belle tugged on Albert's jacket. Mr. Morrison, do you live in the clouds? Albert laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in weeks. Sometimes it feels like it. Would you like to see? Belle, we can't impose, Davina started. It's not an imposition. Besides, I'm curious about what I ordered. I honestly don't remember placing any delivery requests today. As they rode the elevator to the penthouse, Belle pressed her nose against the glass wall, watching the city shrink below them. Mommy, we're flying. Not quite flying, baby. Davina smiled, though she was acutely aware of Albert watching them both with an expression she couldn't quite read. The penthouse was everything Davina had imagined, and nothing like she'd expected. Yes, it was luxurious beyond belief, with its panoramic views and designer furniture, but it felt strangely cold and unlived in, like a beautiful hotel room. Wow, Belle breathed, running to the windows. You can see everything from here. Albert opened the takeout bags, frowning. I definitely didn't order this. This is from Tony's family kitchen. Comfort food. I usually eat. Quinoa and disappointment, Davina guessed, then clapped a hand over her mouth. I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. Actually, it was accurate, Albert admitted, though I prefer to call it optimized nutrition and busy schedule cuisine. Belle had discovered the piano in the corner and was carefully pressing individual keys, creating a random melody. This is the biggest toy I've ever seen. It's not exactly a toy, Albert said, walking over to her. It's an instrument. Watch. He sat on the bench and played a simple melody that Belle immediately tried to copy. Davina watched this interaction with growing amazement. Here was one of the most powerful men in the city, patiently teaching her daughter to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on what was probably a $100,000 piano. You're good with kids, she observed. I'm really not, Albert said, but he was smiling as Belle enthusiastically banged out her version of the song. I don't usually interact with anyone under the age of 25. Well, you're doing great for a beginner. Their eyes met across the room, and something sparked, something neither of them was prepared for. The moment was interrupted by Albert's phone ringing. He glanced at it and sighed. My publicist, I should take this. While Albert stepped away to take his call, Belle explored the penthouse with the fearless curiosity of childhood. She found a chess set and began setting up the pieces in elaborate patterns that had nothing to do with the actual game. Belle, don't touch anything else, Davina warned, but she was distracted by the conversation she could overhear. Yes, Sandra, I know the Blackstone Gala is important. No, I don't want to meet with any more models, because they're all the same. Professional smile, professional conversation, professional everything. Davina felt a pang of something. Sympathy? Recognition? She knew what it was like to feel like you were going through the motions of life without really living it. Belle had moved on from the chess set and was now examining a collection of awards and framed photos. Mommy, this man has a lot of trophies. Is he a baseball player? Something like that, sweetheart. Albert returned, looking frustrated. Sorry about that. Work never stops. Must be nice, Davina said, then immediately regretted it. I mean, no, you're right. It is nice, and I never fully appreciated that privilege until... He gestured around the empty apartment. Until I realized that being busy isn't the same as being fulfilled. Belle had climbed onto the couch and was bouncing slightly. Mr. Morrison, do you have any kids? No, I don't. Why not? Don't you want someone to play with? Albert looked startled by the direct question. I suppose I never thought about it that way. Kids are fun, Belle declared, except when they break stuff. Mommy says I'm expensive. Belle! Davina gasped. It's true, Belle continued, unperturbed. Medicine costs money, and so does food, and so do shoes because my feet keep growing. But Mommy says I'm worth it. Albert looked at Davina with new respect. You're raising her alone? Her father left when she was a baby, Davina said quietly. He decided fatherhood wasn't in his 5-year plan. His loss, Albert said, and he meant it. They ended up eating the mistakenly delivered dinner together, Tony's famous lasagna and garlic bread, comfort food that tasted better than any of the 5-star meals Albert usually consumed. Belle entertained them with stories about school, her best friend Emma, and her elaborate plans to become either a dinosaur scientist or a professional ice cream taster. Both are viable career options, Albert assured her seriously, though the dinosaur scientist probably has better job security. As the evening wore on, Albert found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years. Davina was funny, smart, and refreshingly honest. She didn't fawn over his success or ask about his net worth. Instead, she told him about her dreams of going back to school to become a teacher, about Belle's recent obsession with astronomy, and about the small community they'd built in their modest apartment building. You should see Mrs. Chen's herb garden on the fire escape, Davina said. She grows enough basil to supply half the neighborhood, and she always shares. That sounds nice, Albert said, and realized he meant it. When was the last time anyone had shared anything with him without expecting something in return? When Belle started yawning, Davina knew it was time to leave. Come on, baby, we need to get home. But I want to play the piano more, Belle protested. Another time, maybe, Davina said diplomatically. Albert surprised himself by saying, Actually, you're welcome to come back anytime. I mean, if you want to. The piano could use more practice. Belle perked up immediately. Really? Can we, Mommy? Davina looked uncertain. Mr. Morrison, you don't have to. Albert, he corrected. And I'd like you to. Both of you. As they waited for the elevator, Belle hugged Albert's legs. Thank you for letting me play your piano, Mr. Albert. Thank you for showing me how it's supposed to sound, he replied. After they left, Albert stood in his suddenly quiet penthouse, looking at the piano bench where Belle had sat, the coffee table where they'd shared dinner, the couch where Davina had curled up while telling stories. For the first time in years, his home felt like it had been lived in. He picked up his phone and canceled his evening meetings. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He sat at the piano and played, really played, letting the music fill the empty spaces in his carefully controlled life. 3 floors below, Davina tucked Belle into bed and listened to her daughter's excited recap of their adventure. Mommy, I like Mr. Albert. He's nice, and he has sad eyes. Sad eyes? Like when you think no one wants to play with you. But then we played with him, and his eyes got happy. Davina kissed her daughter's forehead, marveling at her 5-year-old's emotional intelligence. You're very observant, sweetheart. Can we visit him again? Maybe, baby. We'll see. But as Davina lay in her own bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Albert had looked at Belle, like he was discovering something he didn't know he'd been missing, and the way he'd looked at her, like she was someone worth seeing, not just a delivery person or a single mom struggling to make ends meet. She told herself not to read too much into it. Men like Albert Morrison lived in a different world, one where women like her were temporary diversions at best. But there had been something in his eyes when he'd asked them to come back, something that made her think maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning, Albert did something unprecedented. He left work early. Instead of his usual late evening departure, he was back in his penthouse by 5 p.m., and he found himself looking out the window, watching for a familiar figure in a delivery uniform. When his doorman called to announce a delivery, Albert's heart actually sped up. But it wasn't Davina at the door. It was a teenage boy with pizza. I didn't order pizza, Albert said. Address says Penthouse, name says Morrison, the kid shrugged. Albert paid for the pizza anyway, and spent the evening wondering if Davina was working, if Belle was doing homework, if they were thinking about him at all. Meanwhile, Davina was doing exactly that. She'd found herself taking the long route past Morrison Tower during her deliveries, telling herself it was just efficient routing. When Belle asked if they were going to visit Mr. Albert again, Davina explained that he was probably very busy. "Important people like him don't have time for people like us," she said, hating how the words sounded but believing them to be true. "That's silly," Belle declared. "He has time for whatever he wants to have time for. He's a grown-up." Again, Davina was struck by her daughter's wisdom. The following evening, Albert made a decision that would have shocked his board of directors. He walked into Tony's family kitchen and ordered takeout. Not through an app, not through his assistant, but in person. "You're not our usual delivery crowd," Tony observed, taking in Albert's expensive suit. "I'm trying something new," Albert said. "Do you deliver to Morrison Tower?" "Sure do. Got a regular girl who works that route, Davina. Sweet kid, works harder than anyone I know. You know her?" "We've met," Albert said carefully. When Davina arrived at Morrison Tower that evening, she was surprised to find Albert waiting in the lobby. "Fancy meeting you here," she said, trying to sound casual despite her racing heart. "I ordered dinner," he said. "I was hoping you might deliver it." "That's not really how delivery works," she laughed. "You don't get to request specific drivers." I may have mentioned to Tony that I specifically wanted his best delivery person, and he bought that? I may have also mentioned that I was considering a large catering order for my company. Davina shook her head, but she was smiling. "That's either very sweet or mildly stalkerish. I prefer to think of it as strategically romantic." The word romantic hung in the air between them, and Davina felt her cheeks warm. "Where's Belle?" "Mrs. Chen is watching her. She's teaching Belle to make dumplings." "Mrs. Chen?" "Long story. My neighbor. She's been like a grandmother to Belle since we moved in." Albert gestured toward the elevator. "Would you like to have dinner with me? I promise I ordered enough for two this time." This became their routine. 3 times a week, Albert would order dinner from Tony's, specifically requesting Davina for delivery. They would eat together in his penthouse, talking about everything and nothing. Belle joined them twice, charming Albert with her endless questions and uninhibited observations about his lifestyle. "Why do you have so many forks?" she asked one evening, examining his formal dining set. "Different forks for different courses," Albert explained. "That's silly. A fork is a fork. Food doesn't care what kind of fork you use." Albert found himself seeing his world through Belle's eyes. The absurdity of having more shoes than he could wear in a month. The loneliness of a dining room table that seated 12 but usually served 1. The way money could buy everything except the things that actually mattered. After 3 weeks of these dinners, Albert's assistant Sandra began to notice changes in her boss. He was more relaxed, smiled more often, and had even asked her about her children, something he'd never done in the 5 years she'd worked for him. "Sir," she said one morning, "the board meeting for the Morrison Foundation Charity Gala is this afternoon. Should I confirm your attendance?" "Yes," Albert said, then paused. "And Sandra, I'd like to make some changes to the guest list." "Of course. Who would you like to add?" Albert thought about Davina, her passion for education, her dreams of becoming a teacher, the way she lit up when talking about making a difference in children's lives. "I'll send you some names," he said. "People who actually care about the cause, not just the photo opportunities." That evening, Albert broached the subject with Davina as they shared Thai food and watched Belle build an elaborate fort out of his couch cushions. "There's a charity gala next weekend," he said, "for the Morrison Foundation. We fund educational programs for underprivileged children." "That sounds wonderful," Davina said, not looking up from the spring roll she was deconstructing for Belle. "I'd like you to come with me." Davina's head snapped up. "What?" "As my guest. There will be educators there, people working in the field you want to enter. I thought you might enjoy meeting them." "Albert, I can't go to a charity gala. I don't have anything to wear. I don't know how to act at those things, and—" "Mommy," Belle interrupted from inside her fort. "Are you scared?" I'm not scared, baby. I'm just being practical, Albert finished. I understand. But Davina, you belong in that room more than most of the people who'll be there. You're living proof of what the foundation is trying to support, a parent working multiple jobs to build a better future for her child. I waitress at a diner and deliver food, Davina said quietly. I'm not exactly charity gala material. Albert moved closer to her on the couch. You're raising an incredible daughter while pursuing your own dreams. You see the best in people, you find joy in simple things, and you make everyone around you want to be better. If that's not charity gala material, then the charity gala is doing it wrong. Belle poked her head out of the fort. Mommy, you should go. You look pretty in anything. And plus, Albert added with a grin, I happen to know someone who can help with the dress situation. Davina looked between Albert and Belle, feeling like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. What if I embarrass you? Impossible, Albert said firmly. But if it helps, I'll probably embarrass myself. I usually do at these things. Really? Last year I accidentally bid $50,000 on a child's finger painting because I wasn't paying attention. Davina laughed despite herself. What did you do with it? It's hanging in my office. Best investment I ever made, according to my accountant. The next day, Albert did something that would have sent his publicist into cardiac arrest. He took Davina shopping. Not to the exclusive boutiques where his previous dates had spent hours selecting outfits that cost more than most people's rent, but to a department store where Davina felt comfortable browsing. This is ridiculous, Davina muttered, holding up a black dress. I feel like I'm playing dress-up. You look beautiful, Albert said, and meant it. But more importantly, how do you feel? Like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. Albert was quiet for a moment. What if I told you that I feel like that every day? Every board meeting, every networking event, every interview, I'm playing the role of Albert Morrison, successful CEO. But with you and Belle, I get to just be Albert. The guy who burns toast and plays piano badly and laughs at 5-year-old observations about life. Davina looked at him in the mirror. Is that who you want to be? It's who I am when I'm with you. The honesty in his voice made her heart skip. Albert, I know this is complicated, he said. I know we come from different worlds, but I've never felt as real with anyone as I do with you. Before she could respond, Belle came running over with a sparkly hair clip. Mommy, look! It's like wearing stars in your hair. Albert bought the hair clip along with the dress, and when he saw Belle's delighted reaction, he understood something he'd never grasped before. That the best gifts weren't the most expensive ones, but the ones that brought joy to the people you cared about. The night of the gala arrived faster than Davina had expected. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, wearing the simple black dress Albert had insisted on buying. Mrs. Chen had helped her with her hair, creating an elegant updo secured with Belle's star hair clip. Mommy, you look like a princess, Belle declared from the doorway. I feel like I'm going to throw up, Davina admitted. Mr. Albert won't let anything bad happen to you, Belle said with the confidence of childhood. He likes you, I can tell. How can you tell? The same way I can tell when you like someone. You get happy scared. Happy scared? Like excited but nervous. Like when we go on roller coasters. Albert arrived precisely on time, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. When he saw Davina, his expression shifted to something soft and wondering. You're stunning, he breathed. I'm terrified, she replied honestly. Good. That means it matters to you. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, transformed into a glittering wonderland for the evening. As they walked up the red carpet, Davina felt every camera flash like a spotlight on her inadequacy. Smile, Albert murmured in her ear. And remember, half these people are more nervous than you are. How is that possible? Because they're all wondering if their plastic surgeon did a good job, if their outfit is fashionable enough, and if anyone noticed they've been eating nothing but celery for 3 weeks. Despite her nerves, Davina laughed. You're terrible. I'm honest, there's a difference. Inside, the party was everything Davina had imagined. beautiful people in beautiful clothes, making beautiful conversation about beautifully meaningless things. She felt like an anthropologist studying an alien species. Albert Morrison. A woman in a silver dress approached them, air-kissing Albert's cheeks. And who is this lovely creature? Catherine, I'd like you to meet Davina Parker. Davina, Catherine Blackwell. She's on the foundation board. How wonderful to meet you, dear, Catherine said, but her eyes were already scanning Davina critically. And what do you do? I'm between careers at the moment, Davina said diplomatically. Oh, how interesting. And how did you two meet? Albert sensed Davina's discomfort and smoothly intervened. Davina literally ran into me. It was the most exciting thing that had happened to me in months. As the evening progressed, Albert introduced Davina to various people, always emphasizing her intelligence and her passion for education rather than her current job. To her surprise, she found herself having genuine conversations with several educators and foundation donors who seemed genuinely interested in her perspectives. You know, said Dr. Martinez, a principal from East Harlem, we need more teachers who understand what these kids are going through, someone who's walked in their shoes. That's exactly what I hope to do, Davina said, feeling more confident. Education shouldn't be a privilege, it should be a right. Albert watched from across the room as Davina engaged passionately with a group of educators, her nervousness forgotten in her enthusiasm for the subject. This was the woman he'd fallen in love with, passionate, intelligent, and utterly authentic. The evening took an unexpected turn when the foundation's guest speaker, a renowned child psychologist, was called away for a family emergency. The foundation director looked panicked. We need someone to speak about educational equity, she said to Albert. The donors are expecting to hear personal stories. Albert looked across the room at Davina, who was still deep in conversation about literacy programs. He made a decision that surprised even him. I have someone in mind, he said. 10 minutes later, Davina found herself being led toward the stage. Albert, what are you doing? She whispered urgently. Giving you a platform, he said. You have more to say about educational equity than anyone in this room. I can't speak to all these people. Yes, you can. Just pretend you're talking to Belle about why school matters. Before she could protest further, she was being introduced to the crowd. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of expectant faces, Davina felt her mind go blank. Then she spotted Albert in the front row, giving her an encouraging nod, and she thought about Belle, about Mrs. Chen, about all the kids in their neighborhood who deserved the same opportunities as the children of the people in this room. Good evening, she began, her voice shaky but growing stronger. My name is Davina Parker, and I'm here to tell you about my daughter Belle and why education is the most important investment we can make. For the next 10 minutes, Davina spoke from the heart about growing up in poverty, about the teachers who had believed in her, about working multiple jobs while pursuing her degree, and about her dreams for Belle's future. She talked about children who went to school hungry, who did homework by streetlight because their families couldn't afford electricity, who were brilliant and capable but had never been given a real chance. Education isn't just about teaching facts, she concluded, her voice strong and clear now. It's about teaching children that they matter, that their dreams are valid, and that they have the power to change their own stories. Every child deserves that chance, regardless of their zip code or their family's bank account. The room was silent for a moment before erupting in applause. Several people were visibly moved, and Davina could see checkbooks being pulled from purses. As she left the stage, Albert met her with tears in his eyes. That was incredible, he said, pulling her into his arms. You were incredible. I can't believe I just did that, Davina said, shaking. I can. You're braver than you know. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and conversations. Several board members approached Davina about potential teaching positions, and one donor pledged to fund a scholarship program based on her speech. When they finally left the museum, both exhausted and exhilarated, Albert turned to Davina in the car. Thank you, he said. For what? For showing me what real purpose looks like. For reminding me why the foundation exists, for being exactly who you are. Davina looked at this man who had somehow changed her entire world in a matter of weeks. Albert, I need to ask you something. Anything. This isn't just charity for you, is it? Me and Belle, we're not your good deed for the year? Albert pulled the car over and turned to face her fully. Davina, you and Belle are the best thing that's ever happened to me. You make me want to be the man I see reflected in your eyes. This isn't charity. This is love. The words hung in the air between them, and Davina felt her heart stop and start again. I love you too, she whispered. Both of us do. Belle talks about you constantly, and She took a shaky breath. I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. Albert leaned over and kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Davina was smiling through tears. What happens now? Now we figure it out together, Albert said. All three of us. 6 months later, Albert Morrison made headlines again, but not for a business acquisition or merger. The society pages were buzzing with news of his engagement to the delivery girl who stole his heart, though those who actually knew the story understood that Davina Parker was so much more than that. The engagement party was held not in a ballroom or exclusive club, but in the community center in Davina's neighborhood. Albert had bought the building and transformed it into a state-of-the-art educational facility, complete with after-school programs, computer labs, and a full scholarship fund. This is where it all started, Albert said in his speech, gesturing around the room filled with neighbors, delivery drivers, teachers, and yes, a few billionaires who had become genuinely invested in the cause. In this community that taught me what real wealth looks like. Belle, now 6 and even more opinionated than before, had insisted on giving her own speech. My mommy and my new daddy are getting married, she announced proudly, and that means we get to be a real family. Mr. Albert promised to teach me to play piano, and Mommy promised to teach him how to make pancakes without burning them. And they both promised that we'll always have time for ice cream and stupid jokes and helping people who need help. The crowd laughed and applauded, but Albert felt tears in his eyes. This little girl had taught him that family wasn't about perfection or matching china or following social protocols. It was about showing up for each other, day after day, in all the messy, beautiful, ordinary moments that made up a life. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Albert found Davina on the center's small outdoor deck, looking up at the stars. Thinking about anything in particular? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Just how surreal this all is, she said, leaning back against him. A year ago, I was worried about making rent and wondering if I'd ever finish school. Now I'm engaged to you, starting my teaching career, and Belle has more opportunities than I ever dreamed of. Any regrets? Davina turned in his arms. Only one. Albert's heart skipped. What's that? I wish I'd found you sooner. We could have had more time. We have the rest of our lives, Albert reminded her. Promise? I promise. Through delivery mishaps and revolving door disasters and whatever other chaos life throws at us. From inside, they could hear Belle's laughter as she played with the other children, and Albert marveled at how perfectly this imperfect moment felt. He'd spent years trying to control every variable in his life, but the best things, Davina's smile, Belle's uninhibited joy, the sense of purpose he'd found in giving back, couldn't be planned or predicted or purchased. They were gifts that came from staying open to possibility, from being willing to step outside the revolving door of your own expectations and into something real. Ready to go home? Davina asked. I am home, Albert said, and meant it more than any words he'd ever spoken. As they walked back inside to collect Belle and begin the next chapter of their beautifully chaotic life together, Albert reflected on how a chance encounter with a runaway 5-year-old had led him to everything he'd been searching for without knowing it. Sometimes the most important deliveries were the ones you never ordered. What did you think of Albert, Davina, and Belle's incredible love story? Did it give you all the feels? Drop a comment below and let me know which moment made your heart skip a beat. Don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. I'm dying to know what you thought. And if you loved this emotional roller coaster as much as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest heartwarming stories. Trust me, we have so many more amazing tales coming your way. Click here for another incredible story that'll have you believing in fairy tale endings again.